Thursday, February 2nd, 2016. This is the filter number 75. We've done this 74 times before. Today's the 75th episode. We're calling it Bitcoin Fights On. Bitcoin has been run through the ringer, as we all know, and we're just trying to keep tabs on it together. Thanks for everyone showing up tonight. It's a crucial timing in the history of Bitcoin. Your grandchildren are going to ask you what you were doing at this moment to save Bitcoin, and you can tell them you came to the filter. We've got a really good show tonight. We've got a little bit of local news, a little bit of local color in this this grand Bitcoin experiment that we're undertaking here in Ubud, lovely Bali. We've also got some international news. There's some news out of Norway that I think you guys will be interested in. Regarding the war on cash. Yes, there's an active war on cash. Why? We're going to talk about it. Also in international news, we're going to talk about the remittance market. Remittances, $440 billion transact every year in remittances. These are people who work in one country and send money home to another country. Of course, we've got lots of international people in the room, so hopefully this will be of interest to you. By the way, those poor people that send remittances home, they pay tens of billions of dollars every year in fees. So I'm going to have to think about it, but I might, maybe together we can come up with a better way than poor people spending billions of dollars just to move ones and zeros here and there. Lastly, in the international news, we've got a big milestone out of the United States. Oh, yeah. We hit a huge milestone in the States. That's a bit of a surprise. I'll show you in a minute. We've also got, of course, the requisite soap opera news. There's always something crazy going on in the Bitcoin world that's worthy of the tabloids, and this week is no exception. And last but not least, we're going to talk more about the changes in Bitcoin and what's dangerous about things changing in Bitcoin. There's this new thing that's going to be released with the next release of Bitcoin called Replace by Fee. Now that might sound a little nerdy and a little bit esoteric, but what it means is that once somebody pays you in Bitcoin, they can turn around and send the money back to themselves. If you think about a vending machine, if you tie a little string to the penny and you drop it in, get your candy bar and then pull your coin back out, it's kind of something similar. So is this a good thing for Bitcoin? I don't know. Some people think so. And it's going into Bitcoin Core, which is supposed to be released any day. So how could that happen without our approval? Well, we're going to talk about it. So let me share my screen. Give me a moment here so that everybody at home can see what we're seeing up top. There we have it. Bitcoin filter number 75, Bitcoin Fights On. Let's kick off the show. So, of course, as always, we are coming to you from lovely Ubud, Bali, from Ubud's best co-working space, Hubud. They kindly provide us with air-conditioned meeting space every week so that we can have this meeting. We couldn't do it without Hubud. It's like the Bitcoin epicenter, and we really appreciate their support, letting us get together and keep cool at the same time. When we're not together in person, we get together in the Bitcoins in Bali Facebook group. This is where all the magic happens when we can't sit down together. It's a collaborative space where you'll see some of these stories that I'm scrolling past we're going to talk about today. That's how it works. If during the week you find something interesting, please share it with us so that we can talk about it online and also in person when we get together. And if you're not already a member, make sure you join the group. We've got I think over 800 members in this group, some of which are actually real people. So so check that out. We also have a conversation going on Twitter, hashtag Bitcoins in Bali. And I hope you guys, if you're not in the room with us right now, or you're so inspired on your own Twitter accounts to ask a question, ask it on Twitter and we can keep the conversation going there. Just use the hashtag Bitcoins in Bali, and we'll find it, and we can see it, and that way we can have a discussion with the wider world at large. If anything comes up during the hour and we want to talk about it, we can do it there. I've got a tweet all teed up here with Bitcoins in Bali tag to let the world know that we are streaming live. So hopefully that'll attract a few people to what we've got going on here on this beautiful tropical island regarding Bitcoin. There it goes. Okay, local news. This past week, Christine and I visited the Green School. Christine was nice enough to arrange for us to speak in front of a group of 75 kids. And it was really casual. We, you know, these kids at the Green School are already plugged in. The Green School being an international school right here near Ubud, Bali. But the kids were pretty plugged in. They were pretty savvy already. I think most of them already had Bitcoin wallets on their phone, right? And we've got one of the kids from the Green School with us today. Chase, you've got Bitcoin on your phone, isn't that right? Right? All right. Yes. Wave of the future, the next generation. They're going to save us all. And anyway, we had a great time. It was great to be around a bunch of enthusiastic, energetic kids. And there was a real give and take and a lot of enthusiasm. So that was fun. Also in local news, we've got Bitcoin 101 this Saturday, the 6th. We've still got, I thought I updated this. We've got about 14 seats left in Bitcoin 101. So if you're at all curious about Bitcoin and you don't yet have any, please come to our Bitcoin 101. You got to let us know you're coming. There's a registration link. If you go to bitcoinsinbali.org/Bitcoin101, you can let us know you're coming. Also, if you've got friends, possibly, because I know a lot of you already have Bitcoin, but if you've got friends, send them our way. It's a really fun Saturday morning. We start at 10 in the morning, like from ground zero, and then by 12:30 or so, we magically turn our Bitcoins into a hamburger over at the Onion. So,
do you need like assistance or like people who help?
Yeah, that would be great. Yes. If you guys, if any, you know, it's a free class, and anyone's willing, anyone's capable to join. And yes, I definitely need help describing things. So, yes, if you want to come, but you're not a novice, you're definitely welcome to be here. It's a fun morning. This Saturday, February 6th, is when that happens. All right, let's talk about price. We are in Indonesia, and our friends at bitcoin.co.id have the largest Bitcoin exchange in Indonesia. So we usually talk about the price first in terms of Indonesian rupiah. And for one Bitcoin, we're just over 5 million rupiah for one Bitcoin. So you've got one Bitcoin is worth about 5 mil in rupees. Most people, though, are used to talking about Bitcoin in terms of US dollar. Today we're at 377.27 cents for one Bitcoin. That's a little lower than last week. This is my little Bitcoin time machine. And if we go back a week, last week at this time we were around 390, 397, 396.
Is that the peak?
That's the peak for the week.
Okay. What about ever?
What about ever? The peak for ever was about $1,200 US dollars back in the fall of 2013. You can see that peak. Let's see. Let's go to 10-year. There's that peak right there.
The price was still about 800 at that time, right? That you could actually withdraw.
Right.
Yes. There's some controversy around that price. Markets were showing that price, but they were also not allowing Bitcoin withdrawals. Details. Don't mind the man behind the curtain. But anyway, what's interesting about the price on a historical basis is, you know, that we've had these kind of peaks and then settles, peak and then settles. If you were looking at Bitcoin back in 2011, you had a similar peak and then it kind of came down to settle somewhere. And then if we scroll back out, you can see that spike where it looked like it just went to the moon and back just turns into nothing compared to these other spikes in price.
Does that mean we've got another gargantuan one?
Yes, I'm waiting for the next doppelganger Bitcoin spike. That will mean that everybody I've been talking to ad nauseum, family members included, for all these 2 years will all of a sudden be way richer than they were before they met me. But we haven't reached that point yet. Fingers are crossed. Maybe if we can solve the, you know, all this controversy we've been talking about for the last few weeks, we can see another rally like we saw back here. Anyway, that was the Bitcoin time machine. We're talking about Bitcoin here, guys, and Bitcoin's a little different than other currencies because we know exactly how many Bitcoins there are at any given time. Right now, there's exactly 15,156,300 Bitcoins in existence. Or is there? Let me just refresh this here. Come on, Nelly. No, actually, I was incorrect. There are, where did we go? 15,156,550 Bitcoins in total. Now, try doing that with the US dollar or the euro or the yen. Nobody knows exactly how many currency units are outstanding in those currencies, but Bitcoin's a little different. It's a cryptocurrency. It's totally transparent. And
found some more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Every 10 minutes, miraculously, 25 baby new Bitcoins are born, brought into the world, and those go to as like a lottery to somebody who's participating. And that's why everybody has their Bitcoin software running all over the world. Yes, mining.
Yeah.
So what's interesting also here is we're seeing around 10,000 transactions per hour. 10,000 transactions per hour on the Bitcoin network. That's about 2.7 Bitcoin transactions per second. Every second, there's about 3 transactions. And that, my friends, is about the limit of the Bitcoin network. If you look here, these are the Bitcoin transactions over time. And you can see since about 2012, they've been going up and up and up. This should be a good sign, right? This is a sign of Bitcoin popularity. This means that the whole world is starting to use Bitcoin. This is all a good thing, right? Except when, well, when you've got so many Bitcoin transactions that we simply can't process all of them. And if let's look at this in a different view. If I look at the last 180 days, you can see this was a stress test back in September of 2014, where they said that they were warning us, Bitcoin can't handle that many transactions. We're going to flood the network with transactions and see what happens. And there we were, just over 240,000 transactions for over a 24-hour period. And you can see we're now approaching on a regular basis the something similar to what they used to refer to as a stress test. So we're reaching stress potential at all times very soon. And this is the existential problem that Bitcoin has at the moment.
Existential?
Could kill Bitcoin altogether. Bitcoin could one day wake up and be broken, and of course we're all interested in that not happening. But in order to solve this problem, the whole Bitcoin community has to agree, and that simple thing has proven to be elusive. Yeah, how do you get everybody to agree on something? It's hard to do even when you're friends.
Or is that too detailed at this stage?
We're going to go through some of the options, okay. So stick around. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We usually go around the world. Our first stop today is at the United States. Now, don't let all these numbers scare you, although these are very scary numbers. Very scary numbers. The scariest one of all is right up here in the upper left-hand corner. $19 trillion. Anybody know what that number represents? This is U.S. national debt. This is the total amount of money that the United States owes to its own citizens and to other countries. Now, $19 trillion, that's like, well, you know, that's a lot of money, but how much money is $19 trillion? It's hard to get your head around it. So just to give you a little idea, I think in 1984, the United States reached $1 trillion in debt. So 1984, that's when we reached the $1 trillion mark. And if you think about it, we went through the Revolutionary War, went through the Civil War, we went through 2 world wars, and well, God knows what we had to pay for during all that time. 200 years of stuff, a little more than 200 years, we reached the $1 trillion mark, right? Then when Obama took over in 2008, that's when we hit about $10 trillion. So 200 years to get to $1 trillion, And then what about 30 years to get to 10 trillion? And now since Obama's been in office, we've added another 9 trillion. So I don't know. I mean, you don't really have to be a rocket scientist to see where this is going. It's not a good thing, and it's not sustainable. And well, the reason it goes up precipitously like that is because the value of the dollar goes down, and also you need more and more money to pay interest on the debt. Imagine paying the interest on $19 trillion. It's kind of large. So anyway, big milestone for the United States, fireworks, and well, it's actually not really a happy milestone in my opinion. All right, continuing around the world, Norway. This is a part of a series of things that we've talked about from week in, week out. I think it's starting to feel like we're seeing a story like this every week, where some government or some big bank is saying that we need to do away with cash, right? Cash is used for money laundering. Cash is used for backroom deals. It's dirty. It's got germs on it. We need to do away with it in total. And this is the largest bank in Norway is the latest in the saga, saying that we need to do this. And here's a quote from the bank: "Today there is approximately 50 billion kroner, that's the money in Norway, in circulation, but the bank can only account for 40% of its use. That means that 60% of the money usage is outside of any control." Can you imagine? There's some little kid buying a piece of candy in a convenience store, and the government does not know about it. This cannot go on. They've got to track every last dollar that we are spending. Who knows what could happen? But the good news is that the finance minister in Norway is saying that cash is not going to go away anytime soon. But it's interesting that these things make the news. I mean, this is a news story. It's designed to influence public opinion. Even though they're not doing away with cash, I think they're starting to get people used to the idea. Anybody here know why it's not a good idea to get rid of cash? I mean, it is kind of dirty, right? Some people use it for drug deals and stuff. Why do we want to keep cash?
Because some people use it for drug deals.
Yes, some people hold that opinion. Any other more mainstream uses for cash? You can remain anonymous with it. Yes, that's true. Some transactions should be. I think we should have the right to our privacy when we're buying certain things for cash. Yeah. Anything else? Traceless. Yeah. Traceless, anonymous. How about negative interest rates? Have you guys thought about this? If you cannot take your money out of the bank, and all of a sudden, interest rates have been at or near zero lately, what happens when your bank says, well, we're going to actually charge you to have your money at the bank? And by the way, there's no cash, so you can't withdraw your cash. You have to spend it. If you don't want to lose that money, you got to go spend it somewhere. And the world is heading into a global recession, and these Keynesian macroeconomists want to spur consumption. And how to do that? Well, you get rid of cash. You give people a negative interest rate on their savings, and voila, it's utopia for some people. Maybe not for all. Maybe not for your grandmother who saved her whole life and is now getting, not only is she on a fixed income, but her nest egg is disappearing. So I'm glad that nobody came up with that as a reason, because I think it's a very insidious reason to get rid of cash. Not everybody is aware that negative interest rates are a possibility, but this is happening in various places around the world. And so cash is our defense against that.
Japan announced, right?
Negative interest rates in Japan. Yep.
Wow.
Oh, Japan. It's a weird place. Different kind of place. Different kind of place. Okay.
Sorry?
Gold is even better than the dollar.
It can be. It's definitely an alternative. You can stick gold in your safe, and there will always be gold, even if governments say there's no cash. Good one. Yes, Joe. I agree. All right, guys. Let's talk about remittance. I know this is a boring Wikipedia page, but I just wanted to confirm my number, $436 billion. That's just in developing countries. It's actually a 583 billion industry. This is money where people earn it in one country and they send it back home. You can see that the lion's share is going to developing countries, the emerging markets, Indonesia, for example. You've got Philippine maids working in Singapore. They're away from their families and they work 6 days a week. And on the 7th day, they march on down to MoneyGram or Western Union and pay 30% on $100 sending back home. It's really kind of obscene. Can do. I mean, that's kind of a worst case scenario. It's not always that bad, but it's extremely expensive, and it is progressively worse the less money you have. It seems that this industry kind of preys on the least fortunate on planet Earth, and these companies like MoneyGram and Western Union make billions. I mean, billions of dollars just moving money around. You've got $100 in Singapore and it shows up as $70 in the Philippines, and yeah, it's kind of a bad situation.
To give you some context, I saw something on Al Jazeera the other day. It was saying that the remittance market back into Africa is bigger than the aid market. So
the foreign aid market.
Yeah. So now money going into Africa is larger than the diaspora sending money back home, and these from federal nations sending money in for aid.
Right.
That's a big amount.
Yes. Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, in order to get your head around it, I found this kind of infographic. This was posted on the group by Peter Vanderling and our friend from South Africa. And I know this is hard to see, but what we have here is you can see remittances sent and remittances received, and you can click on a country like the United States, for example. And this is a huge amount of money that people are earning in the United States and then sending to all these various countries around the world. So, and you can click on any of these countries and see how much money is flowing to and from them. So I can't quite see it, it's too small, but you could take a look at the countries in Africa and see how much money is flowing into those. It's a really cool graphic. Of course, you can then flip the switch and say how much money is being earned outside of the United States and being sent to the United States, and of course that number is a lot smaller. But it's a really fun graph. You can click on any of these countries and see exactly how much money is flowing to and from them. It's kind of a neat thing to play with. All right, moving on. Now we've come to our soap opera portion of tonight. I don't know if everybody here is familiar with the Silk Road, but it was an online marketplace that used Bitcoin as the coin of the realm. It was the only way to purchase items on this marketplace, and so many of these items turned out to be things that were not legal. Now, in the course of the investigation, basically these guys were arrested. The people that started Silk Road were arrested, convicted, are now in prison in the United States. But, well, along with them are some of the investigators that were involved in prosecuting the people that started the Silk Road. Apparently, these guys were undercover, right? So they infiltrated into the organization and became admins on this website, and they decided it was going to be a good idea to send about $800,000 of Bitcoin to themselves, before the bust happened, and they were found out. And this guy was supposed to go to prison, and the day before he was to go to prison, they arrested him trying to leave the country. Right, and he had, they found a bunch of stuff. He had like fake passports, all of which I think were probably procured on the Silk Road. Yeah. Fake passports and all these plans to set up different shell companies and business interests. And there's now a lot of speculation that he may have stolen more Bitcoins than they originally discovered, because, well, how do you go on the lam internationally if you don't have a stash of some sort to live on? But they caught him. Incidentally, when they prosecuted the owner of the Silk Road website, They subsequently caught these. I think there were several of these guys that were caught embezzling money from the Silk Road itself. Prosecutors, or I'm sorry, the defense wanted to enter this, the fact that there were corrupt FBI agents involved in the investigation, and that evidence was sequestered in the trial of Ross Ulbricht, the person who started Silk Road, and it's probably going to be grounds for a retrial. So there will be more soap opera material to come at the filter. You've got to come every week. You could miss out on this stuff. Don't miss it. And we'll talk about it again, I'm sure. All right, moving on. Okay, Stamen, I think you posted this one. This is one of my favorite people on planet Earth, Seth Godin. He's always got really interesting, provocative things to say. And but to my knowledge, I don't know that he's ever talked about Bitcoin. So we get a little cameo appearance of Bitcoin in this widely read blog from Seth Godin. And the point that he's making here is really interesting. New technology demands something important to move from early adopter novelty to widely embraced tool. And this is something that we've talked about many times because we're trying to build a Bitcoin economy here in Ubud. And like, what do we need to get it going? Why don't women use it? Why don't people walk around with their phones spending it? What stops merchants from accepting it? And he's saying that we need better stories, examples and stories and use cases that describe the benefits that we can't live without, right? And he describes the one past technology that became mainstream, email. Email caught on quickly because we had stories around it. You know, it was just like regular mail, but it was faster. Et cetera, et cetera. You could send something around the world instantly. But then he contrasts that with mobile phones, because we always thought mobile phones were just a phone without a wire. And we never had the story that it become like a supercomputer in our hands and change the way we interact with one another and how we interact with the world. And so that's why adoption happened more slowly. So he makes the point that most of the stories of Bitcoin haven't been about the technology. They've been about speculators winning and losing fortunes. He was being kind there. He didn't mention drug dealers and money laundering and et cetera. But yeah, the stories, I think I agree. The stories around Bitcoin haven't been that compelling for the early majority adoption of Bitcoin thus far.
I mean, the stories are there. It's just the media is not publishing them because they like the drama and trauma and probably like the screaming, right? Like you've got stories, you're sharing stories every time.
Yeah, and I get 10 viewers, like sometimes 15, almost every week.
That's right. So the media's not picking it up because they don't get excited about that story. The fact that small people with not much earning can get stuff at home, but if that went out throughout India or got in some magazines where people are doing that, or got in those networks, it might be a big story to them.
Yeah.
The powers that be, they're interested in trying to discredit it because they want to sustain the system. I think that's.
I think you might be right about that. There's probably certain incumbent powers that are interested in painting Bitcoin in a light that is unsavory to the masses. Yeah.
So it hasn't been a palatable story. That would be. That's my issue with me. It's just why. It's a very simple. Why use Bitcoin? People want to get it. I have $1 and go buy $1. I mean, and or go buy something for $1. And so if you understand it, but right now it's not. There's not a strong narrative for the mass market. So I actually don't blame this on anybody except the powers to be that are responsible for Bitcoin. So I believe improving the narrative, making it, go get a good advertising firm. So that'll figure it out. And then Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Well, I think you're spot on with that.
I think the use case hasn't been a full use case. Like I was just in on, and PayPass up to $100. I just tap, bang, 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 money go down my account. To use Bitcoin, I've got to log in. I've got to do the scan. So there's no benefit to using it at this point in time. I think when the killer use case comes in, it'll take off. But the story's only as good as what's backing it up, and you can fluff around as much bullshit as you want. But until there is that use case, and that's coming. But,
yeah. Well, and I think there may be use cases in the developing world that are more compelling than the ones in the West. Western financial systems work pretty well. swipe my card or do near field communication. I mean, it all works. It comes out of my account. It's all pretty smooth. And yeah, you have to be, I think, for a population to adopt a new technology, it has to be something wildly better than the incumbent. It can't just be a little bit better. And it can't really be, most people don't make those choices based on philosophy. They just want something that works a little better. But
I don't think people have lost confidence in the currency system. But
right.
To me, that's the use case, not the technological aspect. To me, that's part of it. It's obviously technology, but as an alternative currency, people say, okay, well, I'm in Brazil and I've lost 50% of my purchasing power this year. Where do I go? I go to the dollar.
Yeah.
I go to, it's not that it hasn't fallen yet, so it's.
Yeah.
I think building the technology and the use of it as a fallback. When that happens, then it can happen.
Right. I think I tend to agree. I think it'll be some sort of macroeconomic circumstance that obviates the need for something different when the time comes. One of those big spikes in price that I showed earlier happened when Cyprus basically had a banking default, and they recapitalized the bank using depositors' funds. So that created a lot of interest in alternatives, right? And it may be something like that drives the next wave of adoption. But it is interesting to think about things in these terms. This is a really great article in Forbes, very positive, and it kind of frames the whole Bitcoin problem in terms of the crossing the chasm paradigm. Have you guys ever heard of this notion of crossing the chasm, where you've got the inventors basically get involved, and then the early adopters? The Bitcoin is kind of in this phase where you've got people kind of pushing, and the people can see the potential, but you've got this big chunk of people in this area, they call this the early majority, that don't necessarily ever get involved unless you cross this chasm, right? And that's where we are right now. Bitcoin might work, maybe it won't work. And in order for this chunk of people to get involved, we've got to kind of get over the chasm. And this is a really great article that kind of paints the whole story in these terms. If the technology crosses the chasm, then Moore says the early majority pragmatists that are only willing to invest in new innovations once they see it is no longer a passing fad will adopt it. But persuading this early majority is not easy. And then it's quite a long article, but it's worth the read. They talk about the different ways that different companies in the space, the close to $1 billion in venture capital invested in the Bitcoin market. These are the ways that people think that they're going to be able to cross that chasm. Yeah, Kashmir Hill. Yeah, she was one of the first people to live on Bitcoin. Yeah, she's cool. Yeah. Yes. So anyway, check that out. I highly recommend that article, and it's posted in the group already. All right. I think we've come to the main event here, guys. Every week we've been talking about Bitcoin problems or Bitcoin changing. We talked mostly about the block size problem, which is a similar problem to the one we're going to talk about tonight. What I'm here to talk about tonight is BIP 125. What is BIP 125? What is a BIP? BIP is a Bitcoin improvement proposal, right? This is part of the rudimentary governance. How does Bitcoin change? How do you suggest things to be different in Bitcoin? The way it's done is through this thing called a BIP. BIP 125 is the opt-in full replaced by fee signaling. That's a lot of nerdy jargon for we want people to be able to stick the coin into the vending machine, and then after the candy bar comes out, pull the coin back out of the vending machine. It's also referred to as replace by fee, RBF, right? RBF, what is it? I think I've got a good description here somewhere. RBF is a modification to Bitcoin confirmation handling in which transactions currently in the mempool, which means ones that haven't been confirmed yet, can be replaced by a subsequent double spend transaction if that second transaction has a higher fee. Put simply, before RBF, if you double spent 2 transactions, miners or the people that verify transactions would usually ignore the second one because they operate on a first seen principle. Thus, the first seen transaction is probably going to confirm. However, with RBF, when a double spend occurs, the one with the highest fee is the one that's confirmed. So what does this mean? This means that, you know, I walk into Kismet and I have a nice meal and I choose to spend my Bitcoin. So I send them a transaction with a fee of, let's call it like 0.001 Bitcoin, right? And then they're like, they see the transaction hit the blockchain, and I walk out of Kismet, and then for the next 10 minutes, before that transaction actually gets confirmed by the entire Bitcoin network, I have the opportunity to submit another transaction with a slightly higher fee. So I do another transaction with 0.002 as my fee, and have the Bitcoins come back to an address that I control. So I've got my nice meal in my stomach, and I've got my Bitcoins coming back to me, and I basically just kind of robbed Kismet.
So why is that? If anyone's
Yes, good question. How on earth is this possible, and why does anybody think that this is a good idea? This is really the crux of what I wanted to talk about. You know, Bitcoin is this really cool technology, and it works really well. It's been working since 2009. You know, every day, all day, day in and day out. It's got every Russian, Chinese, CIA, NSA hacker just hacking away at it, trying to destroy the technology, trying to make something happen to break it, and it has succeeded, right? But we're now reaching a point where there are political problems in Bitcoin, things that need to change, and how do they get changed, right? This RBF change is going into the next version of Bitcoin Core, which is supposed to be released any day. Now, Bitcoin is supposed to be this decentralized, you know, everybody's cooperating, you know, nobody is in control, you know, this utopia money. However, things like this are making it into a version of the software. Yes, that's, well,
So that you're not supposed to use.
well,
If you don't like it, then you don't use it. Unfortunately, it's really not up to you. The Bitcoin mining community is decentralized, so you actually probably have to go back to the decision that like Chinese mining found.
Right.
It's about 7 people that will be deciding a fate rather than decide.
well,
This is software that ripples out and goes everywhere.
well, this is, you know, Bitcoin is really just a set of rules, and Bitcoin works based on everybody using the same set of rules. And for a majority of the time, this Bitcoin Core was what's known as a reference implementation, which means it's an example of software that follows the rules. So that if you want to also build software that follows the rules, you kind of look at the reference implementation first. And although Bitcoin is very decentralized, there are only 5 developers that have commit access to the Git repository for Bitcoin Core. And some of them work for companies that have an interest in creating a market for transaction fees that is much higher than it is now.
So Gary,
So
what you described, you're going into Kismet, paying your bill, walking outside, and doing the transaction again. It's not quite accurate, because if the money is going to come back to you, what you are doing is reversing a transaction. Whereas if you were standing in Kismet, you paid the bill, it wasn't, you know, you waited 5 minutes, it wasn't processed, then you could choose. You've looked into this, I'm only just learning about this now.
yeah, no.
A quick understanding tells me that I can choose to pay that bill again with a higher fee, and the transaction will go through quickly, and the first transaction will disappear. So,
Yes.
is that understanding correct? So that I get a quick transaction for a slightly higher fee.
This is the way that it's been sold, that you can update a transaction. So the money still goes to the same recipient, but you've just updated the fee in order to basically incentivize the miners to process the transaction more quickly. However, that's not how it's implemented in practice. In practice, you can send to any new address. And there are some details around the implementation of resubmitting to the same address that basically cause exponentially more network traffic. Because all those transactions have to be rebroadcast to 6,000 or so nodes on the network. But anyway, suffice it to say that I can in fact do what I described, where I can take the same outputs from a previous transaction that I controlled, and instead of directing them to Kismet, like my first transaction, I can redirect those funds back to myself, as long as I tack on a higher fee.
And it has to be the same amount of money that you just paid Kismet? Like, do the transaction amounts have to?
I believe the amounts have to be the same. Some of it has to be reduced by the amount of the increased fee.
But if you were sending it to a new recipient address, then doesn't that put up a red flag?
And then you need a QR thing.
Well, currently the software that Kismet has does not give them a red flag when that happens.
The blockchain will get a flag.
The blockchain has transactions in it that are approved by the miners, and this is in the best interest of some miners. I mean, think of it, if you're a miner, you got two transactions. One pays you 10 cents, the other one pays you 5 cents. Which one are you going to put in your block that you discover?
So it's like double spend rule in some ways back into the system.
It is. It is. It introduces a double spend opportunity before the first confirmation.
Well, it's not actually. Well, technically, it's not double spend.
No, I understand.
I mean, I think that the insight here is that you basically say that, hey guys, no one said that the zero confirmation transaction is any good to you. So I mean, as Kismet, think twice. Maybe you don't want to let the person go as if they paid the bill before it's even confirmed.
Yeah, so you have to wait 10 minutes.
Right.
So it's a previous situation that was basically made businesses be able to get away with zero confirmation. So
Yeah.
Trusted that just because it's broadcasted, you get into the system.
Right.
And,
So we have to speed up the transaction process.
Well, no.
That's basically, I think, the real solution is, but that's just my idea.
Well, you know, there are companies out there that that defend against the double spend using their own technology, and these are the companies that are advocating this replace by fee technology. And I've got an article up here, why replace by fee is good for Bitcoin, right? So this is a whole article that takes the other position. I should just say before we take a look here that double spends are, you can still attempt a double spend. And this is way more difficult now, but it will be a lot easier if this RBF thing is widely adopted. But it is technically possible to do a double spend today. If you can quickly, and this has to be done in milliseconds, introduce a second transaction and propagate that out to more Bitcoin nodes before like, let's say, you know, Kismet has a terrible connection to a terrible ISP, and I've got a big server running in in the States that I can basically compete with in terms of propagating my new transaction, and that makes it into the longest blockchain that's considered reality. That I can do that today. It's very difficult. I've never seen one happen. In order to do it, you've got like some of the brightest minds have done these experiments where they try to get double spends to happen on the network. You can't even guarantee that it happens because Bitcoin works in a certain way today. But it is technically possible. And these guys, like at Green Address, have said, we always knew that double spends were possible. We developed technology that made it impossible way back when. So we're happy with this replace by fee. It gives, we don't have a double spend problem. And if someone wants to increase their fee, they should be able to. And this is the key point here. The idea of RBF is quite simple, yet the topic is undoubtedly controversial, as it makes something unreliably unreliable and insecure, like zero confirmation transactions, reliably unreliable. So the argument is that let's make it reliably unreliable so that people stop exposing themselves to the minute possibility that there's a double spend. However, that takes away broad swaths of use cases that are, it means that you and I can't buy and sell Bitcoin on the spot if we don't know one another. We have to sit around and wait for 10 minutes. And I like you guys, but for some of you, 10 minutes is just it's just too long.
Why can't
I don't want to hang out with you for 10 minutes.
what changes that?
This replace by fee
Yeah.
means that I have to sit around and wait for 10 minutes.
Right. Because you don't, the trust isn't there necessarily.
Right.
Because 10 minutes is the block time, so
Yeah.
first confirmation.
You got it.
Now,
But the real
So-
test will be if Coinbase and BitPay and this one is Shapeshift move away from zero confirmations.
right. Again, just like the block size problem, it's going to be a function, like you mentioned, of, well, yeah, they can introduce this change, but is the change going to be adopted by the majority of the people? Are miners going to start creating blocks with transactions that have been double spent in this way or not? Well, the grand experiment that is Bitcoin is going to decide this for us, and we're going to be spectators and see what happens. And we can make some noise about what we prefer. This is a great article by Eric Voorhees. He's one of the prominent people in the space. He started a website called Satoshi Dice, which was a provably fair gambling site that did not require any login whatsoever. And this is the date when he started Satoshi Dice, so you can see it had a profound effect on the overall Bitcoin transaction volume, because people were betting like 1/1000th of a cent, like over and over and over and over again, that kind of thing. But he makes the point, like, and rightly so, zero confirmation was crucial in the user experience of Satoshi Dice. The same is true with his company today. The same is true for BitPay, which is the one that you just mentioned, or digital content delivery services, or tokenized access, or any of myriad blockchain business models yet to be born. Basically, he's saying that why limit ourselves? I mean, it just takes away a whole swath of potential use cases when you have to wait 10 minutes for these ledgers to be updated.
Is it zero? Sorry, I'm a total novice. Is it zero confirmation because it takes so long to put it on the blockchain? Or is zero confirmation actually a desirable thing in its own right? We'd like a confirmation if we had an ultimate world.
It's zero confirmation by design. Like the whole network knows about it, but they haven't verified it yet. And it takes about approximately 10 minutes for that to happen, for real. But
But if we were dreaming up a new thing from scratch right now, is zero confirmation actually something that we'd want, or wouldn't we like to have?
Well, if I design it would be like Ethereum. It would have a block time of like 15 seconds.
Okay.
yes,
Because basically, zero confirmation is not zero confirmation. It's 15 seconds. It's something that even the person can.
yeah, you can. Yes, I can spend 15 seconds with anybody. I think so, unless they're like I don't know, bite. If they bite or something, that's not good. 15 seconds is too long. But
it was a quality of the situation, not by design but by necessity.
Technology.
yeah, I would say it's by design. I mean, subsequent designs like Ethereum and lots of other suggestions of the successor for Bitcoin have made other design choices that are different and better in this regard. But there are always trade-offs for those kinds of things.
It's interesting to ask the question whether Satoshi himself thought about this.
Yeah.
Whether really he thought about the use case of like really quick payment transactions. Whether he thought that maybe it would be sold by like a third party services like topics, insurance, or whether before the time could be changed. Very interesting that we don't know.
He has a very good point about 10 minutes and like Ethereum has 15 seconds, but in 15 seconds maybe only 20% of the network has the transaction. So you have a confirmation in 15 seconds, but it doesn't mean that the whole blockchain knows about it. So you need maybe 20 blocks in order to be 100% sure that this transaction is going to be there. So it's not so much better. Like 10 minutes is a very, very. He has a very good long article about this 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was a design choice.
And he also had what I'm amazed at this Satoshi in the beginning there was replaced by Fee at his initial client, and he switched it off.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes why I don't understand. I will not upgrade now and then just wait and see. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, and let's talk a little bit about that process. Basically, this is the Bitcoin wiki, and it's saying beginning with Bitcoin Core 12.0, it is expected that transaction replaceability will become widely available, and this is the page that talks about it. But you can see here's the release history. .12 has not been released yet. It was supposed to be released yesterday, but has not come out yet, which is kind of interesting. However, if I go over to the 21 dashboard, here are all the clients running in the world, and there are, let's see, you can see there's 158 nodes out there running 12 already, even though it hasn't been officially released.
Whoa, how does that happen? These beta sites or something.
Well,
Yeah,
you can. The thing is, you can run.
Yeah, right.
What's interesting about Bitcoin is, there's these core developers, but there are other people that have written their own software that implements the Bitcoin rules, right? And so you don't have to run anything.
So
And
it's a bit anarchic, couldn't it?
it's totally anarchic. It's actually democratic, not anarchic. It is totally democratic because you're not going into a voting booth and pulling a lever. You're deciding whether or not you're going to install the software or not. You're making a choice on what software you install. And like Stamen just said, he's like, I'm going to wait and see. I'm not going to install that new software until I find out what's going on.
There's nothing literally to stop people from just like having like 20 different types of Bitcoin, and what they would just like, really what's going to determine what Bitcoin is who, the number of people using it, right?
Well, it's actually very simple.
Yeah.
Bitcoin has a very simple definition. It is defined by whoever has the longest chain in the blockchain. Whoever that is defines what Bitcoin is. So if that last block is has a 8 megabyte block size, and everybody starts building on that, then that's what Bitcoin is, right? And that's a function of all the software that people are running and whether or not they're accepting blocks from different sources. And it gets technical. I hope that's not too technical. It's actually more interesting to think about the political process, right?
I was thinking, is that democracy?
Well, there's the democracy of people running the software, and there's the democracy of committing code to Bitcoin Core. This is traditionally where you've got the reference implementation, but we're in danger of actually moving off of the reference implementation of Bitcoin. It's quite possible that somebody besides Bitcoin Core will create a version of the software that's more palatable to a majority of the people that are running the software, and they will basically dethrone these guys as the de facto implementation. It's not bad.
No,
It's good. If it pleases the majority of the people that are running Bitcoin and contributes to the integrity of the entire system, then more power to them.
The only thing I'm hearing what he's saying is that at the moment it's a fee-based motivation, and if all the miners getting off on that fee, like if they go to all their objective interests in ramping up the fees, where those necessarily users have an objective interest in keeping the fees down, is that the difference between the two different groups?
Well, there are economic interests that put people in different camps, right? There are some companies that are building technology called side chains. There's this company called Blockstream. They're building sidechain technology, which are like little ledgers that kind of interact with the Bitcoin ledger and allow for really fast transactions, and would allow for transactions that like only incur a fee when they talk to the Bitcoin blockchain. And so there are several people that work for this company that also contribute to Bitcoin Core software, and so they're kind of playing in a certain camp. And also the miners are, someday they are supposed to run their business on fees, not on the block reward. So they're trying to hasten that migration to the fee marketplace.
Block reward is about to go down.
The block reward is about to go down this year, so they want to replace those with fees. So there's all these competing motivations.
Did I make a posting where I said that these developers are morons and you deleted it, or it didn't come through?
No, it came through. That's
It came through?
this. Oh, I thought I had it. Yeah, it came through. Sorry if I'm making you guys dizzy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's up on the board. Yes.
Oh, I think
That node one you said, Gary, like it says the countries down the bottom. Can you show that? Is that the concentration of where the
Bitcoin nodes are?
the mining power is?
Yes.
So let's try it.
It's probably in this other category behind the Great Chinese Firewall.
But isn't
right.
the Chinese mining capability like 50%?
Um,
That's the problem with the democracy argument, is that the choice is too concentrated in too few people that are very geographically concentrated.
Geographic
culture,
Um,
what the values are.
It's actually control.
it's here are the top miners here and what percentage they have over the last 24 hours, and I believe these first three are Chinese. Does anyone happen to know where the Bitfury is not Chinese? Okay, but this is still approaching 50%.
So that, to me, appears to be more of a problem, is that you've got such concentrated power within the democracy. It's not the users that are making the choice, it's the miners that are making the choice. This determines the users in this case. If you've got a concentration of power and two miners that have got 50%, they can collude. Like, this is a big problem.
That's an ongoing problem. And that stems from the fact that the proof of work is actually outsourceable, which means that it's outsourceable on the one hand and basically asynchronous on the other hand. You know what that means, asynchronous? Basically the algorithm that secures the network, that hash, it's basically can be implemented in special application specifically integrated circuit, which means that it can be replaced by a special designed hardware which only specializes in calculating these hashes. And that's a problem because that basically that creates a completely futile economy, because around secure blockchain it doesn't contribute to general computing resources, and also basically allows for big mining farms to marginalize the cost of cooling and stuff like that, and therefore it makes it not worthwhile for the ordinary individual to run a node.
That's true. That's true.
It's not economical to run to do mining.
Yeah, that's true. If you look at Satoshi's original vision, his original white paper, it's only 9 pages. It's in English. It's like not too technical, but his original vision was one CPU, one vote. He thought that everybody would be running these on their CPU, and there'd be, these would be everywhere. He didn't foresee the things that
because you could outsource the work. That's the problem.
The outsourcing is another thing that allows mining.
Yes.
Mining tools is when you basically have these ASIC miners which only calculate the.
Yeah, but if you didn't allow that.
But actually, I have to calculate the hash, but they actually don't validate transactions. Which means that in the mining, which concentrates on these calculations, actually does the validation. you have a much more chance to manipulate those validations, and they are actually the ones that run a particular version of a client. So it's much easier to manipulate.
Out of
Yes.
interest, when you talked about the models, and it's a bit base or what is it, base point or whatever.
Coinbase.
Yeah. Do they have the same problems? You know, is this
Well, they're all using
inherent in
Bitcoin. This is a problem for Bitcoin itself.
technology?
This is-
So maybe if I change my language, because I don't really know what I'm using to this, right? But there are some alternatives to Bitcoin, right?
There are.
Other currencies. Do all e-currencies face the same kind of dilemma that the more computing power, the more those people and the miners, the people who are handling the machinery, like right now for us it's the banks, Bitcoin it's the miners in effect.
Mhm.
So is it that they can really stack the deck and really our interest can start to be diverging between the user and the people who play with the infrastructure? Is that across all the e-coins?
I think we're exploring new territory. I mean, this is a new thing for humanity, and it's not all. Some of it is technical problems, and a lot of it is human beings cooperating problems, and power aggregation problems, re-centralization problems. It's very complicated. It's technology, sociology, psychology. I mean, it touches every discipline in the humanities and probably physics to boot. So that's why it's so fun to get together every Tuesday night. Well, we're almost out of time, but we are going to have a special session dedicated to Ethereum, which came after Bitcoin, was invented by a very, very intelligent Bitcoin fan who thought very critically about what he would fix about Bitcoin next iteration. And this is Ethereum. It is definitely gaining popularity. And we have someone who's extremely knowledgeable with us for just a little while longer. And we don't have it just yet on the calendar, but it's going to be on the calendar soon. And we can get into, and I would encourage everyone to attend if you find this stuff interesting, because it's a little bit about technology, but it's also about how people cooperate.
Hey, do you want to fix the time for that?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to pick now?
Yeah, just because everybody's here, maybe the best.
Sure. If you want to,
It's up to you.
as long as it's we can pick a time now. As long as the room is available, I'm sure it'll be fine. Did we say next week? Was it Wednesday next week?
We can do this week as well, because the stuff, the reason why I wanted to delay it is not.
It's no longer.
The press fall down.
Well, let's. I'll tell you what. Let's wrap things up and we'll figure it out and announce it. So anyway, we are out of time. I just wanted to remind you guys that Bitcoin 101. You can go to bitcoinsinbali.org and just click on Bitcoin 101. All the details are there. That's happening this Saturday. So that's the next event, unless we have an Ethereum event later on this week, in which case we'll post it here in the Bitcoins in Bali group on the Facebook page. So anyway, thanks for coming, guys. Keep your eyes on Bitcoins in Bali, and we'll figure out what things are going to be scheduled when. And of course, we'll be right back here next Tuesday, 5 p.m. local time. And thanks for coming tonight, guys. Bye-bye.